Good evening. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 5:30. Members of the public are invited to participate in this meeting of council by attending the meeting in person at the Ilderton Community Centre located at 13168 Ilderton Road in Ilderton. And members of the public may also access the meeting, which will be live streamed on our Middlesex Centre YouTube channel by contacting the municipal clerk to receive a registration link to join the meeting electronically. Before we get underway, there are just a couple of opening remarks I'd like to make. First of all, I want to mention that on Wednesday, September the 25th, AORS will be hosting our provincial safety truck rodeo. This is a fantastic opportunity for municipal equipment operators that work day in and day out maintaining the core infrastructure of our communities across the province. And one of our employees, Brett Swiller, will be representing Middlesex Centre at the provincial rodeo. The event is open to the public, so if you want to make the drive to Douro Community Centre to check out the event, you are more than welcome to attend. And I would also like to take a moment to celebrate the milestones of team members who are being recognized for their years of service with Middlesex Centre. So it'll be on the screen, but please enjoy a short video which will highlight these individuals. Yep. Congratulations to all the staff for celebrating anniversaries. It's I think we're really blessed with great people, and it's good to know that they value the time here too and stay. So thank you, everyone. Moving on then, there are no additions to the agenda for the September 18th, 2024 meeting. I will look to members of council. Are there any declarations, of pecuniary interest? Seeing no hands, then we can move on to delegations, presentations, and petitions. We have Chris Trainey in attendance on behalf of Middlesex County to provide a verbal update regarding the construction of the roundabout at the intersection of Glendon Drive and Van Eck Road and Jeffreys Road at Coldstream. I'm going to turn my speaker off. Chris, when you're ready, push your button and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, excuse me. I'm very happy to be here with you today just to give you a brief verbal update on the roundabout that we're very excited to have underway at the intersection of Van Eck and Glendon Drive in Kilworth-Comolka area. And I will just say that right off the gate, we really appreciate everyone's patience with the project as we get underway. Anytime we have a new construction site and we start introducing detours, there's always a bit of growing pains with that. And we do appreciate people who have had some interruption with their day-to-day commute, some challenges with their lives, with school bus pickups being shortly interrupted. And we've resolved problems as they've arisen with those detour routes. And we're continuing to work with Middlesex Centre staff and the OPP to deal with some of the issues that we're seeing on the detours. I will say, right off the go that please continue to follow the official detour routes that are posted. They are available on the county website and this project website for you to review in advance of your trip. And we will continue to monitor and update those detours as the project progresses. For the large majority of this stage of the project, which runs from now till mid-November, we are going to see the north side of the intersection of Van Eck and Glendon Drive closed, which means there will be no travel from Van Eck Road through that intersection to the south. And that will persist until quite late into this stage of the project. We are expecting to see the roundabout fully operational by about mid-November, at which time the project will shut down and we'll reinitiate things in the spring. And that will include sort of the rest of the project. So our sidewalks, our pathways, our top surface of asphalt, the realignment of Coldstream Road, and all those parts of that project will happen in 2025. I would greatly urge people not to be using Old River Road as part of their detour route. It's not part of the official detour route. It is closed to traffic, local traffic only. And I will say if the OPP can lay fines if you are traveling through that area without a reason to be there. There's a reason why that road is closed to traffic right now. And I also want to ask people not to make a left-hand turn off of Glendon Drive onto Old River Road. The sightlines there are such that it is dangerous to make that turn. You're not only putting yourself at risk, but other drivers along that section of road. So please do not make a left turn there. It is signed no left turn. It has been signed that way for many years. So please, again, Old River Road is not a suitable alternative route to use. Just follow the signed detour routes. It may take you a few extra minutes, but you will get to your destination safely. We're very pleased to be working with GHN, who's our general contractor on the project, and Stantec, who's our consulting engineer. The total price or cost of this whole project is going to be just shy of about $6 million. So it's a really big project for the county of Middlesex. And it's an important project for not only the county, but for Middlesex Center and our visitors, in that this is one of the busiest intersections in Middlesex County. And this roundabout is going to provide safe and efficient movement of traffic through this area of Middlesex Center for years to come. I think with that, I would be happy to answer any questions anyone on council might have. And I will be back again, hopefully in the spring, to give you an update on the next phase of this project, which will be probably starting around May of 2025, but we should have an operational roundabout in another month and a half or two.
Thank you for that update, Chris. I'll look to council then, and I see hands. I'll start with Councillor Bird and work this way. Sorry, Councillor.
Just so I understand, Chris, you said the roundabout will be fully functional by mid-November, and then all the periphery stuff, you'll come back and talk about it. And you said the project is it a $6 million or 60? 6?
Just shy of.
Yeah, $6 million.
Take you through you, Madam Mayor, to Chris. Thank you for coming tonight and giving us the update. I too am very excited for this to finally be well underway. And I just want to give you an extra thank you for, you've been very responsive to those that have emailed and sent their thoughts and comments. And I know it's a confusing time for everybody, but we have to look at the positive of we're finally getting this happening, and hopefully in the end, it'll all be good. So thank you.
I don't see any other hands. So I just wanted to mention that there's additional information that can be accessed on the Middlesex County Middlesex County website and under Roads Glendon Drive roundabout. And as well, Middlesex Center has information on our website. So if you type the roundabout, you'll get to the page. So a lot of the information is there, and just maps, pictures, very clear. Okay, so if there's nothing else, then thank you very much, Chris, for making time tonight to come and give us an update, and we'll look forward to the next one in the spring. Okay. Okay, the next item up for discussion is the adoption of the minutes. If there are no errors or exceptions, then we have a motion before us that the minutes of the Middlesex Center Council meeting held on September 4th, 2024 be adopted as printed. If I move it, please. Councillor Arts and Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. These items are listed and usually received as one motion. Is there anything here that councillors would like to speak to? Deputy Mayor Brennan.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Rob. Approximately how many kilometers is the stretch of road that we're looking at turning over to the county? Anybody there can answer that? No? Okay. There it is.
Yep. Good evening, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and Council. Sorry, Deputy Mayor, could you just repeat that question for me? I didn't quite catch all of it.
Sure, just wondering, Rob, just how many kilometers the road you're looking at giving to the county is?
Oh, that section. I don't have the answer right offhand, but I can certainly report that back to you. Yeah, it's a fairly short section.
Thank you through the mayor to Rob. Rob, how did they come up with the amount, the figure that we have to pay them for that road? Is there a formula for that, or how does that fit into the whole program?
Through Mayor to Councillor Shipley, well, the right person to ask would be Chris Trainey. He's still there, but yeah, it would have been a discussion between Andrew and the county. I think it's a formula that they use so much per lane kilometer.
Thank you.
I don't see any additional hands. In that case, the motion before us is that the items are received as one motion. Council members oh, sorry, that's highlighted. That consent items 6.1 through 6.3 listed on the September 18th, 2024 agenda be adopted as recommended. Councillor Cates and Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. All right, we can move on now to staff reports. The first item up is going to be handled by James Hudson, our municipal clerk, and he will provide an overview of the staff report with respect to the Ward 1 council vacancy.
Well, thank you, and through the chair. As members of council will recall, council declared the Ward 1 seat vacant at the recent September 4th meeting as a result of the resignation of the incumbent Ward 1 councillor. This brings us to today, and the report before you which details the options to fulfill this vacancy. In essence, council has two available routes to fulfill the vacant ward councillor seat, by appointment or via by-election. Under the appointment option, there's several ways to go about this. Council can opt to appoint the individual who received the most votes in a previous election but was not elected, or opt to appoint another individual whom is willing to accept the appointment. I'm going to provide a brief overview of some of these available options. So under the first alternative, labeled as option 1 in the staff report, is for consideration to appoint the individual who received the most votes in the previous regular election but was not elected. It'd be relevant for council to consider the results of the 2022 election with respect to the number of candidates who submitted a nomination in Ward 1. In this case, there were two candidates for the Ward 1 office, one being the recently resigned councillor. Council may opt to appoint the individual runner-up, as has been done by the municipality with a previous vacancy occurring in 2020. There's also been several municipalities who have opted to go this route when faced with a vacancy arriving in the 2022 to 2026 term. When compared with other methods, appointments of the next place finisher would be the most cost-effective and time-efficient means of filling the seat. A report can be brought forward to confirm the appointment as of October, resulting in the earliest filling of the vacancy through the appointment process. Alternatively, council may opt to consider an appointment process, which does not involve appointing the individual who received the most votes in a previous election but was not elected. In this case, staff recommend that an appointment procedure be adopted, which would provide a framework for acceptance of expressions of interest, as well as set out the voting and selection process. And that would be done by current members of council during a special meeting of council. Should council consider this option, there's precedent to do so with neighboring municipalities opting for this approach in 2023. Similar to the first option we detailed, the benefits of an appointment process include financial savings versus a by-election and timing allowing for a shorter period of vacancy. As a final alternative under the appointment options, council may simply appoint any qualified individual without an application process and without referencing the most recent election results. Finally, council may also opt to consider directing the municipal clerk to conduct a by-election to fill the vacant council seat. The cost of conducting a by-election will be similar to those associated with the conduct of a full regular election, as all of the required processes, procedures, and accessible voting method requirements remain in place. Essentially, what this means is that a by-election runs the same as a regular election, with a reduced pool of voters. Staff have made some preliminary inquiries regarding the potential costs associated with a by-election and estimate these to be a minimum of $35,000, not including staff time and resources. This would be for an online only election with additional costs that would apply if other voting methods were to be considered, such as in-person voting. Typically in an election year, the full resources of the Legislative Services Clerks team are dedicated to election planning. It's a large corporate project. Although a by-election would be on a smaller scale, it would still require considerable resourcing and will impact other deliverables for the division. Legislation dictates the timing of a by-election and requires that the clerk establish nomination day not more than 60 days from the date council passes a bylaw to hold a by-election, and voting day shall be 45 days after nomination day. Should council resolve that a by-election be undertaken to fill the vacant seat, a subsequent report outlining these timelines, the passage of required bylaws, and the next steps will be brought forward to a future meeting of council. I think I'll leave it at that at this time. I'm certainly available to answer any questions from council. Thank you.
Thank you for that summary report, or summary verbal report. The report is not a summary. I will look to council then for comments, questions, suggestions. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hartz, the floor is yours.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Personally, I'd like to go with option one. I think the runner-up in the 2022 election, Ms. Coles, if she's willing to accept the position, that is what I propose. Thank you.
Others? No, it's a viewpoint. That was not a motion, no.
I would agree with you. Okay, and I know Jean Coles from Community Services. She finished second close. Okay.
Anyone else want to comment or make a suggestion or table a motion? Okay.
I would table a motion, Madam Mayor, that we appoint Jean Coles to the council vacancy. Option one.
Good to read the motion in full. Let's go. This one here.
Thank you through the chair. I'll just take a moment to read the option, to read the motion in full. What we've heard from members of council is a preference towards option one. The reason I wish to read the motion as full is it does contain an additional clause allowing the clerk in providing direction to move to option two should the runner-up be not deemed eligible to proceed. So if council provides direction and a motion to proceed with option one today, I will reach out to the runner-up from the previous election and I'll confirm that they are eligible to sit as a member of council and that they would accept that motion of council. So the motion would read, and it's contained in the staff report, that report CLK 06-2024 be received, and that council resolves that option one, appoint a qualified elector who received the most votes in the 2022 municipal election but was not elected, be utilized as the method to fill the vacant ward council seat. And that the municipal clerk be directed to report back to confirm whether the individual has consented to accepting the office and is still qualified to accept office. And further that should the individual receive the most votes but was not elected, decline to accept the office, or is no longer qualified, the municipal clerk shall utilize option 2 and employ the council appointment procedure as appended to this report. I'll turn it back to council at this time.
So you've heard the motion, then I'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion as presented by the clerk? Opposed? Being none, then that is carried. Okay. All right, then we can move on to item 7.2, the Glendon Drive water main. And Rob is going to be coming online, I think, to present that report. The floor is yours when you're ready, Rob.
Great, thank you. So through the chair, so I'm pleased to provide this report to council. This is a bit of a good news story. This is a report for the appointment of a consulting engineer for the design of the Glendon Drive water main twinning between Tunks Lane and Crestview Drive in Kilworth. So this water main will effectively provide a redundant system between the Kamoka system and the Kilworth system because Kilworth doesn't have any storage of its own. It will also help with water main pressures and supply over the longer term as growth continues to happen in that area. We applied for a grant through the Housing Enabling Water System Fund, and we're successful in receiving a grant of over $400,000 based on a 73% cost recovery of the eligible project cost. In conjunction, we also have a cost sharing arrangement with the developer in Kilworth, which will also help cover a portion of the cost. So we're planning to move forward with the engineering work this fall and construction in 2025. There are some timing requirements through the grant application, and one is to commence the project by September 30th. In my view, we have already commenced it. This work was identified in the servicing master plan. By getting an engineering consultant appointed and commencing work also just kind of ensures that the project is clearly has started by September 30th. So we've selected to go the single source route, one because of timing, two also because Stantec is very familiar with this area. They've been involved in the water system modeling across municipality, but specifically in Kilworth Kamoka. They've also worked on the previous water main project on Glendon Drive and in that area down Kamoka Road. So again, very familiar with the area and the work that needs to be completed. So we're hoping to fast track this project. I think I'll leave it there, and if council has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you for that summary. I will look to council for questions. I don't see any hands. I think that means everyone's clear. Well, in that case, thank you for the report. We have a motion before us, and that is that report PWE 50/2024 regarding the Glendon Drive water main twinning sole source requests be received, and that the engineering design, tender preparation, and contract administration for the Glendon Drive water main twinning be awarded to Stantec Consulting Limited in the amount of $98,674.24, excluding HST. And further, that the mayor and the clerk be authorized to execute the necessary contract documents. Mover, please send a seconder. Councillor Burrs and Councillor Cates, thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, moving on to 7.3, that is the application for plan of subdivision, and Marian Cabral, our county planner, is in attendance to provide an overview of that report. Floor is yours when you're ready, Marian.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to the rest of council. The purpose of this report is to provide a recommendation to council regarding a plan of subdivision file 39T MC 0204, or as we know it as Springer Pond subdivision, as well as the zoning bylaw amendment file ZBA 2017. This revised plan of subdivision application seeks to create 8 lots for a single detached dwelling, and 1 block for an existing dwelling that is on the property. The rezoning application is to rezone part of the property to the urban residential first density zone, with site-specific exceptions. So this property is located on the east side of Springer Street and north of Glendon Drive in Kamoka, and known municipally as 45 Springer Street. The entire property is approximately 16.8 acres. However, the lands that are subject to the applications are approximately 2.3 acres in area and has frontage on Springer Street only. These applications have been before council in the past, most notably in 2017 and 2021. At the 2021 meeting, council heard from the neighboring landowners as well as staff about outstanding issues with the proposed development, especially those that are related to safety and mitigation of the hazards from the development of the pond, including slope stability and increasing the water table in the area. Engineering staff and the Conservation Authority requested additional information from the applicant to clarify technical matters that we've issued questions in the past, as well as the long-term maintenance and access and ownership of the pond. Staff have met with the applicant over the last 3 years to discuss these outstanding issues and to discuss the overall development plan and any outstanding matters. So as a result of these discussions, the draft plan of subdivision and the overall development plan was revised. So the application for the plan of subdivision removed 1 lot, and special conditions to the development were proposed in order to remove or mitigate any of the hazards to current and future landowners that abut the pond. The special draft plan conditions that staff recommended address easements for access, for maintenance, and for stormwater management of the developable lands, as well as for the pond. There's also special conditions for educational packages related to the long-term maintenance of the pond and details about the fill area on each lot. There is also a requirement for the frontage of the entire development to urbanize to municipal standards. Additional conditions relate to cash in lieu of parkland dedication. This will be required instead of the landowner transferring land to the municipality. A development assessment report will also be required by the applicant to address any aquatic species or habitat that may exist within the pond to the satisfaction of the municipality. And finally, and most notably, the applicant will still be required to provide any final plans, any detailed information related to the geotechnical studies, the hydrogeological studies, servicing reports, stormwater management, all to the satisfaction of the municipality and current regulations. The municipality will also seek to peer review these items as well before any development can proceed on this property. The landowner will also be required to obtain permits from the Conservation Authority since the pond is now in the regulated area. And with regard to the rezoning application, staff are satisfied that the new urban residential first density site-specific zone is appropriate for the site. Staff recommend establishing a minimum frontage of 21 meters and a lot area of 900 square meters, which is consistent with the lot fabric of the existing neighborhood. Additionally, staff recommend approval of the reduced front yard setback from 8 meters to 6 meters and a new minimum rear yard setback from 8 meters to 10 meters to locate these dwellings closer to the street line and provide sufficient space for maintenance and access to the pond. And finally, staff recommend placing a holding symbol or H1 on lots 1 to 8, which will require the applicant to enter to a subdivision agreement with the municipality in support of works to be undertaken prior to registration of the lots. So as a result of our review and comments from the public over the years since these applications have been before the county and the municipality, in consultation with the agencies as well as council, staff are satisfied that the zoning bylaw amendment application and plan of subdivision can be supported and are consistent with the PPS and in conformity with the county and local official plan and zoning bylaw. So planning staff are recommending approval of the zoning bylaw as amended by staff, and that Middlesex Center recommend to the county draft plan approval up to 3 years in subject to the draft plan conditions. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
And thank you for that report. I'll look to council then. Are there questions on this? Go ahead, Councillor Burrs.
Okay, unless I misunderstood or couldn't find it through you, your worship, to Marion, who owns the pond, Marion? Who holds ownership?
So currently the pond is in private ownership by the applicant itself. And after the plan of subdivision is developed, that pond will still be retained in private ownership. Yes, exactly. So the existing landowner will still have control over that pond.
The people that buy these properties will have access to the pond. Is that part of the agreement? Yes.
There are parts of the proposed lots that do include some of the pond area, like where the slope is located. They might have access if there's permission given. We have discussed that with the proponent to provide a more formal access through an easement, through a plan of condominium. However, they haven't come forward with applications related to that yet. But that's more of like a long-term plan for the developer.
Are there other questions? Everyone's clear. Okay, in that case, there is a motion before us. And that is that the zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 2017 to rezone the subject property from the urban residential first density exception 3 zone to the urban residential first density exception 47 zone for the land known municipally as 45 Springer Street be approved. And that the holding symbol H1 be applied to the land zoned urban residential density exception 47 to require a subdivision agreement to be entered into be approved. And further, that the County of Middlesex be advised that the Middlesex Centre recommends the draft plan approval for the land known municipally as 45 Springer Street, subject to the draft plan conditions appended to the staff report and subject to a 3-year lapse period. Is there a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Shipley and Councillor Burrs, all in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, and now moving on to item 7.4. We'll look to Rob Cascadon, the Director of Public Works and Engineering, to provide an overview report of Old River Road. When you're ready, Rob, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. So through the chair, again, I'm pleased to provide this update on the Old River Road project progress. I know everyone's pretty familiar with that section of roadway and this project, so I won't try to go into not too much detail, but just kind of highlight a few things as to where we're at. As most of you will remember, this reconstruction of a portion of the road has been around for a while. It dates back to 2011 when the first Schedule B environmental assessment was completed, and then there was a subsequent one in 2018 that had reviewed it. So the length of the road is about 1.9 kilometers long, runs all the way from Pullum down to Glendon Drive, has only about 20 residential lots on it, and has a low-lying portion adjacent to the river that does seasonally flood. In some cases, could be impassable or unsafe conditions. So this project, the main focus point was to look at the slope stability at the curve, kind of just before you go up the hill approaching Pullum, and to ensure that the road remains safe and stable for years to come. There was a project that was completed probably about 40 years ago, and that slope stability has started to fail, obviously, and that slope has started to slip and be eroded by the river. So back in March 2023, we did have a public information center that was well attended by residents. Residents had been attended. They provided some input, and I felt that it was generally well received. One major item that we have been working through is property acquisition, having discussions with landowners as the design has progressed, and we've been able to solidify the acquisitions that are required to complete the full construction. There's been multiple discussions with some of the property owners, some of the more significant ones, and then some discussions with everyone, including the smaller landowners. So obviously we're looking to move that along so we can tie up those lands or transfer those lands to the municipality in preparation for construction. So at this point where we're at, we've had a submission of the 90% design drawings by the consultant. There have been a few kind of little hiccups along the way. One was the potential badger den at the north end, some other areas of concern with natural heritage that were resolved. And then the fisheries on the Thames with DFO, there was a submission made to DFO. We're still awaiting a response back. That is one risk to the schedule, that if DFO comes back and requires further environmental work, there may be a delay. I know when the submission was made, the ecologists that were involved were very confident that what was being submitted will be sufficient, but we never know until we get that response back. So with the 90% design drawings complete, we've had updated cost estimates provided. And one thing that has changed along the way here, originally our scope was to go from Glendon all the way to Pullum. The county has kindly stepped up and said that they would undertake the southern end of the reconstruction of the southern end of the road from the bridge at the creek down to Glendon when they do the realignment of the intersection on Glendon Drive. So that will all be a county project. It is tentatively scheduled for 2026. That's based on our intent to reconstruct the road, do our reconstruction in 2025. If we need to push for a year because of other impacts or DFO, then I think it's likely that the county would probably push theirs by a year and just follow us. So the design work is nearly complete. And once we get these comments back, our review completed, then the intent will be to move forward with a tender package and be ready to issue a tender in late 2024 or early 2025. We would not issue that tender though until we have responses back from DFO and that we are comfortable with property acquisitions. We just wouldn't want to be in a situation where we have the contract with a contractor telling them that they can proceed and then we have holdups so that we don't get into delay claims. So I've touched on the DFO, which is a critical thing. And then, so I guess where it comes to now is cost. So costs have increased over the life of this project. When you look back at the 2018 estimate, it has significantly increased, and it's the increase even from the 60% estimate as the design at that slope stabilization area was refined, and then also some inflationary costs, which is no surprise. One thing that had been discussed previously was that we would come back with a breakdown for council, effectively breaking the section of roadway into 3 or 4 sections and identifying the separate costing for them. We understand it is a large project, especially given the nature of the road and that it is a local road that I understand it's currently used for cut through traffic from other areas of the municipality, but there are only approximately 20 residential properties on that property. And so the full price tag is a lot for that section of roadway. So what we've done, we've had the consultant break it down into sections A, B, C, and D. Section B is the critical section of roadway where the slope stability work is required, particularly at the bottom end of that section B adjacent to section A, where that slope is, and where if you've driven it in the last couple of years, you can tell that that there has been movement in the road, and we keep an eye on and keep maintaining it. So that would be the critical section to move forward with first. And if council decided to approve a significant or a sufficient budget to allow all the different sections to proceed as one large contract, we would go that way. There would definitely be some cost savings just from the economies of scale of having contractors mobilize once. However, understanding that it is a large capital project, certainly we would be okay with moving forward with section B initially and then deferring sections A and C to later dates. And D is a small section and with the roundabout or the turning circle at the north end. That can't be done until the Glendon Drive portion is done. So it's really sections A, B, and C that are, I guess, really the focus of the discussion right now. We have not made a recommendation to council, but I would love to hear your input and thoughts on the cost. Certainly, if council had a clear direction of how you would like to proceed, we would take that route. We were intending on coming back with another report prior to tender just to refine the costs, which would include some landscaping, utility relocation costs, which should be relatively small, in the grand scheme. But if council already has a clear direction and there's not a need to come back again, then we would certainly take that. So I'll stop there and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that report. I've been seeing that for over a decade on this road. Just, yeah, I saw the hand slap. I'll start with you, Deputy Mayor, and then we'll move around. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a couple of questions for Rob. The cost you're showing us, Rob, does that include the acquisition of any lands that we're going to need to widen the road?
No, that's a good question. So what you're seeing is just the cost of the construction cost estimate. So we do have a separate budget that was set aside for land acquisition. We believe that we will fit within that budget, but that is also going to be a discussion. And part of that certainly is going to be dependent upon whether we can come to, friendly agreements with the property owners, or whether anybody is going to require us to go to, excuse me at the moment, but if we had to expropriate any land, right, that both would cost us probably additional time and money. So we hope not to have to go through that process.
Okay.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, just sort of cut you off. I guess one thing I should make clear though is that the largest land needs are at that section B, right? So on both sides of the road there. So certainly the lion's share of the acquisition as far as land area and cost is going to be associated with section B.
And just once this project gets completed, Rob, are we going to attempt to limit traffic down this road again? Because in the past, there's transports going down there, and that certainly didn't help the road any. And if my concern is if we spend all this money and redo the road and then we open it up again, the same thing's going to happen again if we don't limit transports and that sort of thing going down there.
Yep, no, that's also a good question. So through the chair, yeah. So if you remember the EA proposal, which we've ended up sticking with, was for a gated end up by Pullum. So it would only the intent is that it would be gated. It would be there for emergency access, but it would not be the primary access to that section of roadway. So it's still a local road, still open to the public to use it, but it's not won't be intended to be a through road.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just for clarification, Rob, last week we were talking about this as I think we've received a letter from all the residents petitioning for the fact that they wanted full access to Pullum Road. This document alludes to the fact there'll still be a gate there, but I think what you told me was the county is still deliberating what to do at the corner of Glendon, right? So are they still might consider full access onto Glendon from Old River? And if so, Pullum's they're gonna have to have full access to Pullum. And the final comment is, I think everybody knows, and the fire service knows, that's a dangerous situation at Glendon and Old River Road for accidents. Can you comment on those two things? Was it just two things or three? Okay, so the redesign by the county is, well, it's up to the county, but they're probably talking to you about it, I presume. Maybe, I don't know if you can allude anything, and then there has to be consideration then for full access to Pullum.
Yeah. Okay. So through the chair, I can start with that. So as of right now, the design is as it was in the EA with the modified intersection at Glendon Drive. Chris and I have not had an opportunity to discuss, but yeah, just recently I heard that there may be some discussion around that. Because you're right, they are dealing with the property owner. Currently, there's no change. Obviously, we're not at the point of tender yet, so there is still an opportunity for change. I just can't confirm whether it will or not. If there was a change at that where it was no longer a full entrance for exit and entering, then yes, it would have to be a full access at Pullum. I know that residents did submit a letter. Like I said, most of them, or a lot of them, had attended the public meeting in 2023, and generally the feedback was very good. They understood that there would be a gate. I think the critical thing that was discussed was that yes, it will be gated. What our intent is to come up with a way that the residents can have access to that gate if required, so it doesn't require emergency services to come and open it up in an emergency. So how that's going to be finalized yet is yet to be determined. But I know that's a critical piece for the residents. Yes.
Just one follow-up, just a comment on construction. If we can afford it, my opinion is I think we should do the whole thing because costs keep going up as we go into the future. We could get some economies of scale here, as he said, and just the sheer mess of doing this. Going once, do it right. I hope you agree with that, Rob, that you might save some money by doing it once. Costs continue to go up as we go forward. It'll probably be more expensive again. That's just a comment.
I have Councillor Arts.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Rob. I'm a little confused of the term gated. I assume gated meant the residents could go in and out off Pullman Road and nobody else. Is that what your definition of gated is, or? Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, through the chair. Yes, that would be, yes, through the chair, that would be essentially correct. Like I said, it hasn't been completed yet. I think their concern was that it would be locked and only emergencies would have, or emergency services would have the access. That's not the intent. So how that's going to work, whether it's a keyed system or a code system or whatnot, it's not intended. Like obviously, the intent is that there's a full access at the other end. However, we know that was one of their major concerns, was to ensure that there was access provided to the residents. So,
through your Madam Mayor, to Rob. Well, I got a problem with spending $5.5 million on a road that only basically, if it's gated, 20 residents will have their own private road. Like, yeah, I got some serious questions on that one. Thanks.
Is there anyone else? I did have one question, Rob. When you indicated that section B obviously is the number one priority and the most important, and you suggested that we might do other pieces down the road, is that is it kind of linear, A, B, C, D, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, or is there flexibility in terms of how those subsequent sections are timed? I'm just thinking about the impact of like $5.5 million on our roads budget in terms of the other projects that we've got going, and how we could manage maintaining our schedules, but also paying for something with this many zeros.
yep, through the mayor. No, it's a good question too. So I'd say, so one thing I would like is that if there was a direction to only proceed with construction of section B, or to tender that section initially, is that we would complete the design for all of it to 100%. Maybe even it would have to be a separate tender document for section B, but all the design work would be completed for A, C, and D as well. I think so B would go first. Likely section A would probably be the next one to go. There's some drainage improvements that could be completed in that area. There's really no significant elevation change as far as like safe access during flood events. And then section C is a section that, depending on other internal workload, is a section of roadway that our internal forces could potentially build at some point in the future. Right. And then there's an option that instead of asphalt, it could be tar and chip even, right? There's maybe some cost saving measures that we could do on that section. So that's kind of the order that I would look to see it happen.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there anybody else that has anything? All right, in that case, there is a motion before us that report PWE number 47, 2024, Old River Road update be received for information. If I could have a mover, please, Councillor Arts and Councillor Cates. Thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, and now we can move to 7.5. I'll look to our Chief Administrative Officer, Michael DeLuto, to present the EPIC Partnership Report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the chair to members of the council, before you is a report in respect to additional opportunity for a partnership that we've earlier established in the year. As you recall, we put forward a partnership agreement with the EPIC Sports, and they established a dome structure at the rear to the north of the Kamoka Wellness Center. And the purpose of that venture is to help them establish their clientele business. As you may recall, long term, they are establishing a private recreation complex in the community of Delaware on Gideon. And in the interim, there is a partnership that we've established with them to help them get their venture off the ground. And not only that, has been mutually beneficial in respect that we've been able to work with them, and we've used our Kamoka Wellness Center as a true wellness center to have partnership opportunities, whether it be with the Ice Academy and with Epic or with the YMCA. And this is just one other opportunity. Since that time, throughout the summer, there's been conversation with them, and they are wanting to continue with that relationship with the municipality. And as an interim step, as they continue to proceed with the development of their private recreation complex, they recognize that there's value in continuing with the usage of the Kamoka Wellness Center, so much so that they are wanting to add an addition to the rear of the arena area, and it would be for their use. And there are many benefits as indicated in the staff report. And so the staff recommendation is to put forward a long-term lease agreement that they would be responsible for the all costs. So there'd be no tax impact or no levy impact to our residents, whereby they would construct an addition to the rear of the arena for their usage, which would be also offered for other opportunities such as having other echelon sports opportunities such as Junior B or AAA teams, where we would establish our Kamoka Wellness Center as a proper venture that could host those types of higher echelon sports clubs. And this would certainly accommodate that process. So with that, a lease agreement is attached to your agenda. I'm happy to answer any questions. The only other note that I'll mention is that should council decide to give direction to execute the lease agreement, one thing I'll note is that staff have been in dialogue with Epic, whereby as we would have staff on site at all times, working as a working group partnership to ensure that, and it's noted in the report that any construction that does occur on municipal lands does meet our standards as it relates to asset management. And secondly, there would be another agreement as it relates to access and indemnity to ensure that all risk is complied with and taken care of, so that we are safe to continue and operate and do business. But with that, I'm happy to take any questions from council for the lease agreement.
I'll look to council for questions. Councilor Bruce.
Just wondering if anybody have we heard from the public about this at all? Have you heard anything, Michael?
Through the chair to Councilor Burns, the council has received one piece of correspondence. But other than that, no other correspondence or delegations to my knowledge.
Is there anyone else? I don't see any hands. In that case, there is a motion before us that report CAO 25, 2024 regarding the addition to the Kamoka Wellness Center Epic partnership be received, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into a lease agreement with the Elite Performance and Injury Clinic for the use of the new addition to the Kamoka Wellness Center. Is there a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Shipley and Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Now we can move on to public meetings. The motion before us is the council move into public meetings at 6:22 p.m. pursuant to the Planning Act, RSO 1990 as amended, to consider the applications listed on the September 18, 2024 council agenda. Is there a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Cates and Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that is carried. So now we are sitting in public meetings. Members of the public that wish to receive further notification on the applications being considered today, I ask that you please send an email to planning@middlesexcenter.ca requesting further notification. Please be advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record. If you have questions on any of the applications being heard this evening, we ask that you direct those to the appropriate planner on file. Members of the public that have requested to speak will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address council and provide comments on the applications. In keeping with our procedural bylaw and our R-zone policy, I would remind all of our meeting participants to use respectful language and uphold our values of cooperation, trust, and openness. There is an order of proceedings, and it's the same for each public meeting. The order is as follows. First, the chair, that is myself, will ask the planner to explain the purpose of the application and to present the staff report. Then the applicant or their agent will have the opportunity to speak to their application. Then the public who have registered will be asked for their comments. Members of the public who are present and wish to delegate will be called upon for additional comments. Then council will ask questions of the applicant, delegates, and or staff. And then finally, I will ask for motions regarding the applications that are presented to us. So keeping that agenda in mind, then the first item tonight is an application for a zoning bylaw amendment for 14387 Ilderton Road. And this is Marion Cabral's file. If you'd like to present the report, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to council. The purpose of this report is to provide a recommendation to council regarding a rezoning request for file ZBA 9/2024 for the property at 14837 Ilderton Road. The purpose of the subject rezoning application is for council to consider an amendment through an Ontario Land Tribunal decision as a result of the minutes of settlement for the consent file B6/2023 that conditionally created a new residential lot for a residence surplus to a farm. The applicant requests to rezone the severed parcel to a new site-specific surplus residence zone to establish a minimum lot frontage of 95 feet and retain farm parcel to an agricultural new residence zone to prohibit any new residential uses from establishing. The property is located on the southeast corner of Ilderton Road and Richmond Street, just north of the community of Arva. The surrounding uses are predominantly agricultural with some rural residential areas. The existing farm parcel is approximately 95 acres in area with a broken frontage on Ilderton Road and contains a single detached dwelling as well as an accessory building. The severed lot is proposed to be just under 5 acres with a frontage of 95 feet on Ilderton Road, and the severed parcel will retain the dwelling. However, the accessory building will be maintained on the farm parcel. Notice of this application was circulated to the public, agencies, and staff. Staff did not receive any comments or concerns related to this application at the time of writing this report. Provincial and local policies guide surplus farm dwelling severances and permit them where new residential development is restricted on the retained farm parcel. Specifically, the policies of the PPS and official plans are intended to preserve agricultural lands and the overall agricultural area from fragmentation or incompatible or non-agricultural uses, such as residential uses. Planning staff continue to maintain our opinion that the initial severance application and the severed lot does not meet the policies of the PPS nor the official plans. However, in review of this rezoning application specifically, the requested zones are consistent with the PPS as it will seek to protect agricultural lands for the long term and prevent further fragmentation of the farmland. Staff are also satisfied that the reduced lot frontage of 95 feet can be supported to prevent additional land from being removed from the farm parcel, and it reflects the existing access to the dwelling. As a result of our analysis, planning staff recommend approval of the requested application to rezone the lands to the surplus residence exception 12 zone and agricultural no residence zone, as it is consistent with the PPS, the county, and local official plans. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that report. Now, neither the applicant nor an agent has asked for to be able to speak to the application, and there are no members of the public who have registered to speak to the application. I will now look to members of the public who are present and wish to delegate to be called upon. Is there someone who would like to speak to this? Yeah, if you'd like to come up, please state your name for the record and I guess give your address. The lady. Oh, is he an applicant?
He is going to identify himself as an applicant. He did not register.
Okay, so you are representing the applicant then? Oh, okay, so. Yes, okay, got it now. So this is not a member of the public, just to be clear, everyone, this is, yeah, okay, go ahead and take your time to put through your case.
Well, good evening. It's a pleasure to meet the council. My name is Stephen Fernandez, and I act on behalf of the applicant with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment application. As background, the purpose of the requested rezoning is to conform to a decision of the Ontario Land Tribunal heard on May 21st, 2024, with respect to a consent application initiated by the applicant. So the consent application is a precursor to this application. The purpose of the consent application was to sever a residence surplus to a farm operation. The retained parcel has active agricultural operations, and the severed parcel contains the surplus residence. The tribunal was satisfied that the consent application was consistent with the provincial policy statement, as well as the official plans of the county and municipality, through the conditions imposed on the consent. One of the conditions is that a zoning bylaw amendment is obtained. The subject lands, including the retained and severed parcels, are zoned general agricultural. So in essence, the application is for two things: zoning bylaw amendment from general agricultural zone to a no residence agricultural zone for the retained parcel, and a zoning amendment from a general agricultural zone to a surplus residential zone for the severed parcel to comply with the conditions of the consent application and the zoning bylaw requirements. I just have very brief comments for both requests. So the applicant submits that the no residence agricultural zone is appropriate for the retained parcel, as this zone applies to agricultural holdings that are retained following the severance of surplus farm residences. The retained parcel satisfies the requirements of this zone. This rezoning would also satisfy an additional condition enumerated in the minutes of settlement, that no further residences be placed on the retained parcel. And with respect to the severed parcel, the surplus residential zone is appropriate, as this zone applies to lots that have been severed as a result of farm consolidation in order to accommodate surplus farm residences. The severed parcel satisfies the requirements for this zone, except with respect to lot frontage. My understanding is that the minimum lot frontage for the surplus residence zone is 98 feet. In present circumstances, it's 95 feet, but the frontage of 95 feet was utilized for the severed parcel to eliminate potential impacts to the agricultural operations of the adjacent farmland. So the applicant kindly requests that the council exercises its discretion in permitting the requested amendments. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. As I noted, there are no members of the public that have registered, but I will ask members of the public present if there's anyone here who would wish to delegate. If you'd like to come forward, please state your name and address for the record. And I will watch the time, so go ahead and make your present. Okay, I'll turn mine off and then you can push yours and your.
Is it? Oh, there we are. Okay, good. Okay, Sheila Wilson, 14-424 Ilderton Road. Okay, I'm not intentionally thick. I'm just not, I have a few questions because I don't understand how we got here. So I was through this process when the lots were severed across the road from this application that's before us. And that was at, I can't read this, 14378 Ilderton Road. So that part was severed, I don't know, a few years ago. And through that process, I learned that pockets are deep and money speaks. There was a planning consultant through that process. One of their clients was Loblaws, so you know the size of that design consulting firm. That land was severed with the house and a few acres. And then the remaining farmland was to remain as farmland, which it has been. And then the owner put the small acreage up for sale. Didn't sell, but the cost of that lot and house was the exact amount that he paid for the whole, I don't know how many acres are there, let's say 40. So ironically, I think something similar is happening here. Now, I don't believe that in my lifetime, I'm going to see any type of residence on the severed property. But I think in time there will be. And that goes against the, what do you call it? Policies. It's in, this person's report. It says planning staff continue to maintain our opinion of the severance application and that the severed lot does not meet the policies of the PPS and official plans. But however that happened in December of 23, this council unanimously agreed to not approve the severance. Then applicant appeals that process and then it goes to some sort of tribunal. And that's where I'm lost. I don't know what happened after that. I can only guess. There was a case management conference scheduled for May the 6th that didn't happen because minutes of settlement were dated May the 3rd. So I'm guessing through that process, this lot that's now being asked to be severed or what is now being severed. So I don't know what's changed. Like we have planning staff here who are very educated, and when they make a recommendation to not have this property severed, and then it goes to some tribunal and it then becomes severed. And so here we are to meet the conditions of the minutes of settlement that says we have to have a rezoning amendment. So I'm, as I said at the beginning, I'm not intentionally thick. I'm just confused. I don't know how we got here. So if somebody can help me with that, that would be helpful. And I see that the council members have got confused looks on their faces. I don't know. I don't know. Somebody can help me, hopefully. That's it.
Okay, thank you. We're not here to engage in a conversation, but this is, I hear your comments. And what I'd like to do is, this decision is made in the context of the Ontario Land Tribunal. So it's attached to the report. But I thought, Marion, if you might just briefly explain what the process, just give a high level answer, just so that the resident has some context in which to place the questions that are in her mind. I know we're not having a conversation, but this is, yeah, this is not something we're going to answer. Yeah.
I can speak to that. So I think, sorry, so I'm Stephanie Bergman. I'm the manager of planning and development for Middlesex Center. I was not here when the original zoning bylaw came through, but I can kind of speak more generally to the process by which you know, these things get appealed, and it goes to the tribunal. And sorry, I guess I'm trying to understand what exactly what I want to answer here, or what question. Just can you repeat your question again?
We as local residents and council members, you know, agreed that this severance should not be supported. And then it goes to some tribunal and that gets overturned. And then here we are. So what's changed? I don't understand how we get here or how we got here.
Yeah, and I guess that's a tough question because a lot of things are subject to you know, subject to when we talk about legal proceedings, right? There are some confidentiality concerns there, right? So I guess I'm just not sure. You know, we have our local policies and our local policies within our official plans and objectives locally. But I think, as we all appreciate, when these things go to that tribunal, you know, it really is kind of, they have to look at the policies of the provincial policy statement, and there are differing opinions that occur when that happens, right? The local objectives are not necessarily, you know, they're viewed in a different way, right? So, yep, just.
Yeah, I'll just bring some closure to this matter. So thank you for your concerns. Just No, I just want to thank you for coming forward and saying that. Just to add to our planner's suggestion here. As you state, it goes before, the application was put before the tribunal. It's a provincial jurisdiction and they have oversight in terms of planning matters and decisions and have the right to overturn. And so to answer your question, it's been put before a provincial tribunal and the decision has been made by that tribunal and that decision's been listed on the agenda.
What can I say?
Thank you. I will look to members of council. Is there any question of the applicant or staff or planners? Yes, Councillor Arts.
Through your Madam Mayor, I respect the fact that what of the ruling. What I'm a little disappointed in is that when we have surplus farm severances here in the municipality, we always want two access points, one for the retained and one for the severed property. Just so down the road, there's no misunderstandings or confusion. And the tribunal thinks it's all right to have a easement agreement between the two property owners. So I'm disappointed in that, but there's nothing I can do about it. But I want to make for sure that that easement agreement is registered before they get there, and I assume it has been registered. Or does one come before the other?
Yeah, so through the chair, so typically, when we look at situations like shared access, on parcels, we would want to do so through the process of consent. And the reason being is the process of consent does not allow discharge on title from private parties. So, standard agreements can be discharged after 21 years. A consent can never be discharged without the municipality's actual consent to remove. So when it comes to something like a shared access agreement to a property, I do understand where you're coming from, Councilor Arts. Typically, it's not something that we would look at for these types of severances because we like to keep the farm uses separate of the residential, just to keep the future conflict at bay. But obviously we see the decision here that the tribunal has made. So it's kind of bound our hands as to what we have to do for procedurally moving forward. There may be an opportunity to discuss further with the applicant to see if they would be willing to install a separate access completely and bypass the requirement for an easement. But with that said, if the answer is the easement, then we would want to do that through an actual consent for a shared access easement, just to ensure that it remains on title and cannot be just discharged into the future.
Is there anyone else? Okay, I don't see any more hands. There is a motion before us that the zoning bylaw amendment applications at BA 09-2024 to rezone the lands known as 14387 Ilderton Road from agricultural A1 to surplus resident exception 12, SR 12 that is, and agricultural no residence A3 for the severed and retained lands be approved. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Brennan, Councillor Cates, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to application 8.2, and this is for a zoning bylaw amendment for 1318 Ilderton Road, filed by Civic Planning. And this is Marion's file again. If you'd like to present your report, Marion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to council. The purpose of this report is to provide information to council regarding the zoning bylaw amendment files ZBA 10-2024. The application requests to rezone the lands from existing use to a site-specific urban residential third density zone to accommodate a medium density development. At this time, the municipality nor the county has received any other applications related to this development, such as site plan approval or plan of condominium. So it's just the zoning bylaw amendment before you. The lands are located on the south side of Ilderton Road and is irregularly shaped with frontage on and connections onto both George Street and Ilderton Road. The entire property is 2.32 acres with frontage of 20.2 meters on George Street and 33.2 meters on Ilderton Road. The site, subject to the rezoning, and the development proposal is 1.95 acres in area and maintains the frontage and access to George Street only. The property contains a single detached dwelling as well as accessory buildings that front onto Ilderton Road. As a result of this zoning application, it does not affect that existing dwelling and it can remain as is. Residential lands abut the subject property to the west, south, and east, and commercial uses, recreational uses, and residential uses exist to the north. The effect of the zoning bylaw amendment application would permit the development of 26 units within a plan of condominium. The applicant provided a conceptual plan which is subject to change, and the development proposes one access to the subject site from George Street with no vehicular access from Ilderton Road. Internal private roads that connect into a singular driveway to George Street, 26 townhouse dwelling units that are proposed that will front onto these private roads. Each townhouse unit is proposed to be 2 stories in height and have private amenity space and a patio in the rear yard, as well as 2 parking spaces per unit. No communal amenity space is provided. 7 visitor parking spaces are provided throughout the development, and no parking on street would be proposed nor permitted. There's a sidewalk that is proposed that connects the proposed development to the south side of George Street. Again, this is subject to change and can be revised through site plan approval. Additionally, more detailed amenities such as a communal mailbox that will be placed on site will be subject to site plan approval as well as consultation with Canada Post, and other details such as snow storage, garbage collection, etc., will be reviewed through future planning applications. So the conceptual plan and the supporting documentation provided by the applicant are appended to my staff report. The applicant also advised that the development will be in the form of a vacant land condominium, and I bring this up because the way that they had requested their rezoning amendment application was based on a cluster type of townhouse development. So Middlesex Center is a little bit special where our zoning bylaw interprets a vacant land condominium a little differently. With that, staff made a special clause or proposing a special clause to include, which I'll get into later on. The applicant also hosted a community information session in February of this year. This was a very conceptual level. They sought feedback from neighbors of the development for the entire site that addressed matters such as density, appropriate building form, compatible uses, massing heights, and privacy elements. So as a part of the rezoning application, from what they've heard from neighboring landowners, the applicants are requesting a minimum lot frontage of 20 meters for the entire site, and that would be the George Street frontage. A minimum front yard and side yard setback of 1.8 meters when the side of the building faces the lot line, or 6 meters when the rear of the building faces the lot line. A minimum rear yard setback of 3 meters when the side of the building faces the lot, or 6 meters when the rear of the building faces the lot line. A maximum density of 35 units per hectare, and all other regulations of the UR3 zone would apply. So this application was circulated to staff, agencies, as well as property owners within the area. At the time of writing this report, we did not receive any comments from the public. Staff reviewed the applications and had no objections to the rezoning, and of course, more detailed comments would be provided through future applications such as site plan approval and a plan of condominium. We had a few agencies provide feedback, specifically Thames Valley District School Board did review the application and had no concerns with the proposed development, as well as some of the utility companies in the area. So the PPS County Official Plan and Middlesex Center Official Plan is generally in support of infill development like this, where there are a variety of housing types and tenures where it is compatible with existing development. Staff reviewed the rezoning application with reference to the conceptual plan. The applicant provided zoning standards that are suitable for cluster townhouse development. So as mentioned before, the zoning bylaw interprets vacant land condominiums slightly differently. As such, staff recommend adding a clause that would allow the same interpretation of the zoning bylaw regardless of condominium form or tenure. And we have done this previously with other similar types of townhouse developments throughout the municipality. Planning staff also reviewed the requested site-specific provisions for the reduction of the minimum lot frontage from 30 meters to 20 meters and the increased density from 30 units per hectare to 35 units per hectare. We find that these are appropriate modifications to the zone as the impact of these site-specific provisions are generally minimal. Similarly, the requested side yard setback reductions to the southern property line abutting the existing townhouse development at 315 George is appropriate since the townhouses in that development are set back significantly from that shared property line. Planning staff did identify a few concerns related to the setbacks from the rear lot line. So this is specifically the western property line that is shared between the properties along Timberwalk Trail and the side lot line along the northern property line abutting the commercial lands along Ilderton Road. Staff recommended a greater setbacks that are provided to provide an increase in privacy as well as minimize incompatibility between the uses. Specifically, we recommend 6 meters setback to the western property line, regardless of how the building is oriented, and a 3 meter setback from the northern property line where the side wall faces the lot line instead of the 1.8 recommended by the applicant. So since these recommendations are significant and they can significantly alter the conceptual plan, staff will work with the applicant to arrive at a suitable solution. Additionally, staff would like to solicit feedback from the council and from public as staff are recommending that this staff report be received for information at this time. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. The clerk informs me that Mr. Michael Davis is in attendance on behalf of Civic Planning and Design to comment on the application. Floor is yours when you're ready, Mr. Davis.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Thanks for that. My name is Mike Davis. I'm a partner with Civic Planning and Design in London. Here today with you representing our client, Duncan Harwood Custom Homes, who are the developer and builder of this project at 13181 Ilderton Road. I think Marion's provided you obviously with a very solid overview of our proposal, so I don't want to repeat what she said, but did want to appear before you today on behalf of the team. We're obviously excited to be reaching this milestone with this project, which is going to see the infilling of this vacant lot at the western edge of George Street developed with 26 new two-story townhomes. Want to acknowledge the work of Marion and the rest of the staff in planning and kind of their thoughtful evaluation of this proposal and helping us to navigate this forward. I understand that the primary purpose of tonight's session is really to hear from the public and that a final recommendation is going to be coming forward at a future date, but we appreciate the work that's been put in thus far, and we see that there's a general support from staff on this concept, save and except for a few minor considerations and adjustments that we'll be working through, and we're currently in talks to finalize before the recommendations brought forward to you. One thing I did want to point out for council, starting back in February of this year, the team, ourselves and Duncan Harwood, has invested in a significant amount of time to talk to residents in the area. We carried out a multi-phase public consultation strategy for this project. That was an evolving conversation that ultimately had some relatively significant influence on the design that we ended up with here. Through that process, just to give you a few statistics, we had almost 1,700 unique views on the project webpage that we established. That's a significant reach within Ilderton. I think it was posted on the community Facebook group, so there was a lot of eyes on the materials on the website. There was 109 households in our circulation radius that we sent postcard invitations to. So we know we had a very high reach. We had decent attendance at our sessions as well. There was 2 sessions held. One was in February, one in June. Had about 20 individuals at each one of those. The first session in February, we talked with folks generally about the parameters for development of this site and what could be contemplated or possible. And then in June, we shared more details. We took their feedback and shared more details in June about how we consider that feedback and what's actually being brought forward in terms of a concept plan. So we do feel that those conversations were productive, probably somewhat evident by the fact that Marion just mentioned there had been no comments received by planning up until this point. So we were happy to invest in that program, and I think it did pay dividends. In terms of the project itself, we work closely with our client, following the directions of your official plan and our discussions with residents to achieve what we feel is a gentle intensification of this site and a form of development that is a needed form of housing in the community and something that's going to fit well. I think a few points to emphasize here, just from a neighborhood fit perspective, what we've done is limited the building heights to 2-story forms. That's really consistent with many of the homes to the west of us along Timberwalk Trail. From a functionality perspective, each of the townhomes will include 2 parking stalls, one within an integrated garage and then one within each of the units' private driveway. We've also included in the design of the site's additional 7 visitor parking stalls to accommodate for guests and other short-term needs. We've planned for the internal road network to be really oriented as an extension, a private extension of George Street, so that the development feels like a natural extension that blends with the existing streetscape. Each one of the units will have an individual private outdoor amenity area. So each one of these units will come with their own private green space. With those kind of design features, we feel this is a very sensitive approach to infilling the site. And again, providing a much needed form of missing middle housing in a way that we think complements, enhances the community's housing stock. So with those kind of quick remarks, appreciate your time and consideration today. I'll certainly be available to answer questions from council or members of the public as they arise.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any members online? No. So we don't have any public attendees tonight. I'll look to council then. Are there questions or comments on what you've seen or read or heard? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Brennan.
To you, Madam Mayor, Marion, perhaps 13181. The line for this piece of property appears to be going right through the building on that piece of property. Is that an error, or is there some adjustment has to be made there?
Yes, the 2 accessory buildings will be demolished as a result of this development. But the existing house will remain.
Is there anyone else? Councillor Arts?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's just a curiosity question. 2 of the buildings run perpendicular and the other 4 are on angles. Is that a design thing or to fit the lot better? Or I'm just a guy that likes straight lines. I was just curious the rationale behind it. Thank you.
That's an excellent question. Actually, just on mic come up, so I don't know if you can answer a little bit better than I can.
Yeah, happy to address the question for the councillor. So there are a few constraints that we are trying our best to work around here. One of those being there is a servicing easement that extends from Timberwalk Trail to George Street that basically bisects the site. And so essentially it all ties back to that. We're trying to more or less work around, we can't have buildings placed on top of the easement. So the slightly the orientation of the site plan being slightly askew from the kind of prevailing pattern of surrounding properties really ties to trying to minimize conflict points with that servicing easement. Obviously, when we're looking at it from a top-down view, it's noticeable in kind of the third dimension, and once built, that orientation will be, I think, much less noticeable. But that is the driving factor is working around that easement.
Is there anyone else? Seeing no hands, then there is a recommendation for us that the report PLA 42/2024 regarding the zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 10/2024 to rezone the land at 1318 Elderton 81, pardon me, Elderton Road be received for information. Councillor Burrs, Councillor Cates, thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. And that's the last item for our planning pieces. So the motion before us is that the public meetings adjourn at 6:58 PM and council resume the regular meeting. I need a mover, please. Councillor Shipley and Councillor Cates, thank you. All in favor? And that is carried. There are no notices of motion tonight. So the next item is correspondence. Are there any items here that we would like to speak to? Councillor Cates.
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. I have two things. One of them, briefly just on the blue water recycling. I just wanted to wish Francis all the very best in his no longer being president and in his future. I had the pleasure of working with him when I sat on the board, and he's a real pioneer in the recycling industry, and I just wanted to wish him the best. Thank you for all your years. The second thing is there's a motion from AMO, and I wanted to table that motion.
Okay, do we take that one? Yeah, we do. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to call a vote on 11.1. So the motion before us is that we endorse the motion with and support the AMO call to action on the social and economic prosperity review. If I could, you're moving it. Thank you, Councillor Cates. If I could be seconder, Councillor Burrs, thank you. Call the vote. All in favor? And that's carried. And then 11.2 through 11.4 be received of information. Councillor Burrs, Councillor Cates. Oh, you have a question. Sorry, Councillor Burrs. Okay, so we will receive 11.2, 11.4. That was the motion I just read. And I have a mover and a seconder. I'll call the vote then. And all in favor, that's carried. Okay, so I should
These things come up from time to time and they go into correspondence. Is it our responsibility to put up our hand and say, let's pull it out of correspondence and deal with it? Or is that what we want to do? Yeah, okay. Versus, all right, let me get.
Thank you, Councillor Burrs, and through the chair. Yeah, we've essentially got that correct. Where the municipality receives requests for support for resolutions, if we receive the wording of a proposed resolution, we'll place that right onto the agenda so that it's available for council members. But ultimately, it's up to the members whether they want to choose to pull it off and have us consider and adopt a motion separately. So, yeah, thank you.
okay, and now we have this is new. We're separating the minutes and information from all of our local boards and advisory committees. The motion before us is that items 12.1 through 12.12 listed under the heading of minutes of local boards and advisory committees be received for information. Councillor Cates, thank you, and Councillor Arts seconding. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, I will now look to Deputy Mayor Brennan to give us an update on the county council meeting, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It was a rather short meeting, the last one. Impact was there, Municipal Property Assessment Corporation. There's not going to be any reassessment until the provincial systems review is completed. The last evaluation, as everybody knows, was January 1, 2016. I know there was a piece in the paper not too long ago that some in Quebec had been reassessed, and some of those assessments were up 350%. So we're hoping that if something like that happens here, we can phase it in, hopefully. Ann Hayes is the regional manager, and if anybody's interested, they can contact her. We passed Ed and Vieira's lawyers to be the integrity commissioner. closed door, investigator and ombudsman for the county. And they will take, their starting date is January 1st of 2025. The strategic plan for the county is going to happen early next year. It's going to be a combination of internal staff and external consultants that will be looking into that. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brennan. If there are no questions, then we do have a closed session and we have a motion that the council for the municipality of Middlesex Centre adjourn to closed session at 7:03 p.m. pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act as amended to discuss the following matters. Under 239(2)(c), a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and the specific descriptions proposed acquisition, Ward 4. If I could have a mover, please, and a seconder, Councillor Burrs and Councillor Cates, all in favor? Okay, we'll stand adjourned a few minutes recess just so we can get organized. Thank you.